Today we are going to discuss IELTS Writing Task 2. So we are discussing the different types of questions in IELTS Writing Task 2 so that you can have an overall understanding of how the questions are structured. We have also discussed the Writing Task 1 question types previously. So if you want to take a look at that, we have that video available here. So do check it out. And today we would discuss the different types of questions strictly associated with the Task 2. Now we'll get on to the different types along with the examples in question. Now we have divided it in different terms. Of course, you would have various categorizations when it comes down to the names or the categories of the questions, and it really differs from how you have made the categorization. So here we have made some like very clear and simple distinctions which could be further elaborated during our discussions in our sessions. Now, the first type of question that we stumble upon is the opinion-oriented or the opinionated ones. Now, let us look at some example to elaborate on this. So you can see this question type, so this example. This is an official example from the Cambridge IELTS book. And you can see, first of all, you have this instruction which says you should spend about 40 minutes on this task. This is the topic which they have given, which says some people say that the main environmental problem of our time is the loss of particular species of plants and animals. Others say that there are more important environmental problems. So there are two viewpoints. There is, let's say, a viewpoint 1, and then there's the viewpoint 2. Now, we don't yet know which viewpoint you are supposed to support or which you feel like supporting, so we've just given it two names. Now, the question says discuss both views. When they say discuss both views, you simply follow that, right? You have to discuss then both the views and give your own opinion, whatever that might be, right? Now, let's say your opinion is towards a viewpoint 1, or let's say it's towards viewpoint 2, or if you have a more balanced opinion, that is also something you can add depending on how you construct the logic of your essay. Now, look at the viewpoint 1. It is usually against the viewpoint 2. So we're talking about two opposite viewpoints, right? Something like pro-con oriented. So the first thing that says, some people say the main environmental problem of our time is the loss of particular species of plants and animals. So they have given you the loss of species as a main environmental issue. Others say that there are more important issues. Other issues are more important. Or simply speaking, they're saying that the loss of species would not be the highest on the priority list for them. Now, it's just a matter of then you trying to formulate if you would be prioritizing the loss of species or the extinction as your major environmental concern, or if you would be saying that, oh no, there are other concerns like environmental issues related to pollution, related to maybe the overconsumption of resources, right? Maybe deforestation, maybe global, climate change, global warming, right? So you can give a a different set of priorities based on A, B, C, D concerns, whatever the concerns are, right? And you can highlight one of them if you think that the loss of species might not be the highest on the priority list for you. So again, there's a logical order, right? And we have to really focus on the way the question has been framed. And here, because they have asked you for an opinion would be there, but opinion is something. Now, there are different, we can say there are different opinions or takes on this matter as well. Some would say that, yeah, you can, when you're formulating your body para, you can give a set of opinion. Let's say you've given your opinion and then you give your reasons. That is one way of going about it. The other way would be giving your reasons and establishing your opinion side by side in this order. In this case, the opinion becomes an inference. Okay, So different ways of establishing your opinion, but mostly the opinion should never be unsubstantiated. So if you're giving any opinion, it should have some substance. So I believe in X and Y. The why is the most important thing to mention rather than the what. The what will definitely be mentioned, but the why actually has a precedence. Okay, so accordingly, there's a, like, an overall priority placed on the logic, and the better you are in framing the logic, framing the examples, trying to support your opinion or to give an instance of what these viewpoints are and why some people believe that loss of species might be the major problem, and why the others are insisting that there are other concerns involved, and what are those issues, the other issues that they're talking about, right? So we would really try to formulate this in a very specific and clear manner. Without a clear planning of your essay, it's really difficult for you to write it in a logical way as well. So the planning really is really important, right? The task response, the coherence, the logical order, it will all depend on your conceptualization of the essay. If your conceptualization is not strong, it's weak, your logic is weak, you can use whatever writing strategy you want, it won't work. Okay, now moving on to another example of an opinionated essay. So you see this one, it says, some people claim that not enough of the waste from homes is recycled. They say that the only way to increase recycling is for governments to make it a legal requirement. Now what do we have here this time? So here again we have two sides. Maybe we can make two sides out of this. So there's a concern, first of all, right? There's a concern that not enough of the waste from homes is recycled. This is what we would call the core concern. And this core concern has been addressed with the solution that the only way to increase recycling is for governments to make it a legal requirement. So there would be definitely an instance for pro, or supporting legal requirement, or let's say opposing it. And the question says, to what extent do you think laws are needed to make people recycle more of their waste? So in this case, this question could also be categorized under a direct question order. It could be categorized under direct question. It could also be categorized under opinionated questions. Because essentially what you're doing is you're again giving an instance of what the argument consists of, the whys, the whats and the whys, and then you're talking about your take on the matter, right? So when they're asking you that direct question, to what extent do you think? Of course, they're talking about your opinion on the matter, right? You think that the laws are needed. Now, before you establish your opinion, it is logical only to establish the reasons which are already out there, the common reasons, maybe the substance for the existing viewpoint, right? What they are saying, why they are saying that, what is the assumption behind the claim, and why do you feel otherwise, or why do you feel like supporting it, right? So before you establish your opinion, it's really imperative for you to establish the logic, the existing logic, and against which you're working, or maybe for which you're building your argument, right? So there's always some sort of negative or positive element in question which is associated with the argument. It might be a pro-con list, it might be advantages, disadvantages, it might be support or opposition, it might be agree, disagree. Just the terms differ, right? The terms differ every time. Logic is pretty categorically same, right? So you can say they're similar. And what you're exactly doing is that you're establishing what the meaning is, the meaning that you can draw from the prompt. Let's say this is the prompt, right? the meaning that you can draw from the prompt, what they're saying, why they're saying that, what do you think and why do you think that. So it's a categorical list of what's and why's. So accordingly, you add your own take on any of the sides, right? But there are usually sides when it comes down to it, right? Now, moving on to other examples. So we have a different variant. This time we have positive and negative developments, right? So positive and negative developments, let's see an instance of that. We have this topic. Again, you should spend about 40 minutes. We'll talk about the timing also, that 40 minutes is usually more than sufficient if you want to write a decent piece, as long as you can formulate your reasons readily, right? So 40 minutes, usually how we break it down is that first of all, you have 5 minutes, about 5 minutes to conceptualize. This is for your concept or conceptualization, right? Then the rest of, let's say, 30 minutes you spend in basically tackling the whole thing. You write your task response, you build your body paragraphs, you build your conclusion, draw your inferences, right? And then about, for the last 5 minutes, you always check, you proofread, because without checking for your mistakes, you can't just like go on and just assume that you've done it right, because when you're, let's say, typing, there might be typos or else run-on sentences, right? Or else when you're even like writing manually, there might be difficulties like the spelling errors or other things that you absolutely need to proofread. So last 5 minutes or 3 minutes, depending on how fast you can do it, it's really important for you to keep in order for you to check what you've written. So this timing can be definitely maintained as long as you are confident about your content, right? So we would discuss at length regarding forming content, or how to come up with the most valid points, the most relevant substance to discuss during your writing task 2, because the content, the quality of the content, the presentation, all of these things would matter a lot, apart from definitely grammar, basic punctuation, basic stylistics, right? And so on. Now look at the topic here. It says some children spend hours every day on their smartphones. Now this is a question, why is this the case? They've asked you a direct question here. Do you think this is a positive or a negative development? Now again, there are two sides. There's a positive side, there's a negative side. Now why it might be positive, why it might be negative, you can come up with at least 2 pointers on each side, along with relevant examples. And of course, then finally, your take on the matter. Now, your take on the matter is not really, they've not asked you directly, but then look at this. Do you think? That means they're also asking you sort of for your opinion or your take. So technically, opinion is somewhere part of your IELTS essays, whatever sort of essay it might be given in a more substantial way, giving through, let's say, examples, discussing different advantages, disadvantages, different sides, positive, negative developments. But essentially, you're still dealing with the what's and why's, and ultimately your opinion or your take on the matter, right? It might be a little like a strong opinion coming off as opinion itself. It might also be just a logical order of proving things. The logical order of proving things always would be the best order to follow, because if you've logically established a viewpoint, there's no way in any category they can actually strike that out, right? So essentially, if you don't want to go through a plethora of strategies or tips or tricks to remember, simply follow the essential, the basics, the foundation, right? We're not supposed to, like, go through rote learning when we're trying to just learn a basic essay writing, which is hardly, because it's a 250 words minimum, right? You can hardly write 300, 350, 400, maximum 450, right? Because within the time you have, the best would be to do it, to limit it within 400-ish, depending on what you really want to write, because there's no point in elaborating too much. But then again, it's really important for you to logically establish your viewpoint. Now for that, if you need 1 or 2 pointers, maximum 3, that's absolutely fine, right? Now, moving on to other examples, look at this one. It says, in their advertising, business nowadays usually emphasize that their products are new in some way. Okay, so there is an issue or a concern that you have. It's a general issue or concern, right? Now the question again asks, why is this? So this is sort of a cause-oriented question, right? They've asked you for the cause. Do you think it's a positive or a negative development? It's the same as asking, do you agree with it or disagree with it? Do you find it good? Do you find it bad? Is it a pro or is it a con? It's a boon or a bane, right? Whatever it is, it's either a positive or a negative. It's always some way a difference. It could be a difference in a like a problem versus solution. It could be a difference between advantages versus disadvantages. It could be a difference between agreement and disagreement. It could be simply the difference between different viewpoints. But it's always some sort of difference, right? Now, there are so many terms, right? There's a wide area of terminology which is being used these days to specialize upon your approach to writing task 2. But essentially, what you're dealing with is just a matter of differences. Okay. We would always try to simplify. Our motive is not to overcomplicate things for you, but rather than that, try to have simple abilities. When you're trying to chop like a tree, right, which is definitely don't do that, but yeah, when you're trying to chop a tree and you have your axe which is completely blunt, it's not going to work for you, right? So if you just you're trying to have a good chopping experience, you need that axe to be sharp, right? So your abilities are what that's going to make it sharp. So you want to axe through any essay topic. Just remember the basics, the foundational skills, the foundational abilities are always the same. You don't have to remember, oh, this is the trick for this type of essay, that is the trick for that type of essay, and this would not work. Oh my God, no, absolutely not, right? So simply come to the basics, right? The basics are what? Oh yeah, in advertising, business nowadays usually emphasize that their products are new in some way. Oh, find examples, right? There's so many examples. Like think about phones, smartphones. Like every year there's a hue and cry, right? About, oh, when Apple releases a phone and the whole thing is about, the discussion is about what's new. Is it the camera? Is it some feature, right? Or if it's like maybe a company which is producing e-readers maybe, right? Any sort of product, any type of service that you have used in your lifetime. And as consumers, we consume lots of products and services on every day pretty much, right? So you can take an example from all those various experiences that you have with a product or a service which you thought or was presented to you or advertised to you as something new. And you can talk about, okay, yeah, how so-and-so company, just generally speaking, they usually do this. They put up a front to say, oh, look at this feature. We have it new. And there's this whole competition going on. Now, is that competition a good thing for the consumers? Or is it somehow baffling us? Now, what are the pros and what are the cons? So technically, you're agreeing or disagreeing with something also happens to be maybe the advantages or disadvantages associated with that viewpoint. It could also be simply the pros and cons associated with that. It's simply a positive or a negative development, right? So Here, do you think it's a positive or negative development? So what sort of positive you can find? Maybe just choices, that you have more choices. It like, it promotes research and development, so R&D, right? Promotes research and development because there's this whole ambience of like, you're trying to find something new, you're trying to push development, you're trying to push product research. The companies are all trying to get something new, which means they're pushing for like, a sort of evolution, right? Technological evolution. So they need more because the people need more, which is good. If as a consumer, you have more choices, you have probably better services and products in a few years, right? But then again, the most obvious thing that it results in would be confusion. So the consumers are often baffled, maybe sometimes also duped with these promises. So you understand, okay, there are these advertisements which show up up front, which give you these promises. Oh, we are presenting to you this product or device which is completely new. And then when you look into it, it's really just the old version with a new package, right? So is it the outside which is new and inside it's the same thing? It's an advertising gimmick, as we call it, right? That would be more of a negative thing, right? And the positive would be the number of options, the R&D, and all of that. So you can always come up with examples using your life experiences. You can use your common sense, you can use your general understanding of things, your daily experiences. Now, most of the time, students are baffled because when they're writing, they cannot come up with these very simple points, even though they all know it. It's because you have not practiced well enough. Now, if there's this whole notion that somehow magically by using strategies, you would come up with the logic, you would come up with the pointers, then that is absolutely not right. Because as long as you have not pushed yourself to at least write a few times a week, pushing yourself to go through, like, push your brain to actually yield the results, yield the points when you're asking for it from your existing knowledge base, from your repertoire, right, as we call it, you would not find this as a normal flow of ideas. The normal flow of ideas, or the flow of ideas itself, comes from practice, right? So we would again try to practice and go through and we would try to visualize things, right? Visualization always works best. If you visualize yourself in that predicament, you're trying to choose something, maybe buy a certain product, and you're researching on the internet about the different companies which are offering that. And what do? You look at their promises, you look at their product description, what are they offering, is it new, is it old, is it something which is different from the others, and how is your experience overall? You can draw from that in order to come up with at least 2 very good points, right? Because this is anyhow it's a part of general experience, and any person has similar experiences of this sort, right? So it's again a matter of just practice and making it usual and natural for us to think simultaneously as we are writing. Now, moving on to the other type, agreement versus disagreement. Again, see, I would always emphasize it. Whatever the shallow differences between the categories, essentially we're talking about usually multiple sides of viewpoints or multiple sides of, let's say, positive or negative considerations. Now let us take a look at an example of this kind. So what you can see here is the topic which says many manufactured food and drink products contain high levels of sugar, which causes many health problems, right? Sugary products should be made more expensive to encourage people to consume less sugar. Now see, there are 2 things. There is a premise or a cause, right? Or a concern, whatever you call it, right? And there is an inference or a solution, a proposed solution, let's say. Now, what you're supposed to do is, you're supposed to either agree or disagree. They've asked you, do you agree or disagree, right? Now, in order for you to like work on this, again, you have to essentially demarcate what would be the difference in the perspective in the first place, right? Why would you agree? Why would you disagree? What are they talking about? Is it good? Is it bad? Is there a positive side? Is there a negative side, right? And which side are you on? Before deciding which side are you on, you need to be clear with your logic. You can't just choose a side and then try to, okay, yeah, then I'll come up with the logic. Always count your reasons first. If you count your reasons first, you would have good enough reason to support your answer. If you count your reasons later, after just like, mentioning a certain standpoint, it might be a little difficult for you if you're not used to writing much. Now, so what is the front here? They're saying that there's some sort of like health impact from food and drink products, which are like manufactured products, which we can also say like processed food, right? We can also call it processed food with high levels of sugar, which is bad or like detrimental for health, right? And the sugary products should be made more expensive. So why should they be made more expensive? Is because they are bad for health and they create many health problems. So this is a matter of public health, right? This is a matter of public health because they're not talking about one person here. They're really talking about a general concern that processed food that has a lot of sugar, it should be made more expensive to encourage people to consume less sugar. So it's like a mandate. Should they make it a mandate that they should like increase the price? So the concern itself is the price being increased. Is this a positive thing? Or is this like a negative? Okay, so pros and cons, right? Pros of increasing the prices. Are we going to achieve that goal that they have set out for us, right? That they have set out the goal, yeah, we're trying to maybe encourage less sugar consumption. Now, would the sugar be consumed less if these measures are taken, right? That's the whole point. So you can come up with, again, at least around 2 points on each side before like beginning so that you can understand which side you're on. If you're bent on the cons part and say that, no, I don't really agree with it because I'm against people not having choices. People should always have choices, and the government has no business taxing sugar or like fat consumption or whatever, right? It really depends on the person, and it really, if it's a public health issue, it's more like there should be more awareness for like why they should consume less rather than forcing them to pay up on that, right? So if you believe that front, let's say if you have that standpoint, then you have to present your logic accordingly. But then on the other hand, if you believe, no, it's become a really great concern right now because of the rising obesity issues or diabetic concerns or the population, like the public health issues which are happening these days. So accordingly, if you believe, no, it's the need of the hour that we do have these policies, to tax these high sugar consumption of the processed food, then definitely go on accordingly, right? So your standpoint definitely dictates what direction the essay is going to take. But before you take that standpoint, you should be clear on your logic. If you have enough points to cover that, don't just jump on a boat, right? Before jumping on the boat, look around, always find what reasons you have. Are the reasons good enough? Is the logic relevant? Is the substance good enough for you to construct your essay, right? Now, it all depends on that. So moving on to another example. Look at this. So some people say that music is a good way of bringing people of different cultures and ages together. To what extent do you agree or disagree with the opinion? So again, you can technically make two sides out of this, right? So it would be like a good way of bringing people of different ages and different cultures together, and let's say it might not be too effective. Okay, so that you believe in it or else you don't believe in it too much. Okay, so whatever way you want to roll it, you again have to count your reasons. What are your reasons? Without going through the reasons in any type of writing task too, it is essentially the reasons that you have to focus on. Before you begin, remember there's always a stem. This is the stem, right? Music is a good way of bringing people of different cultures and ages together. This is the belief. This is the prompt. This is the issue. This is the concern. This is not an issue as such. This is a belief more of. So this belief, do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? You don't have a concern here. Sometimes we have a concern or issue, a prevalent issue, right? But we don't have an issue here. We have a belief. And this belief could be something you agree with or else you don't agree with. Either way, there are positive reasons or there are negative reasons or contributing reasons or opposing reasons that you can point out in order to construct your essay. So essentially, again, it's a matter of positives and negatives, right? If you just go back to the basics. Now, if you say that, okay, I agree with it. So you agree with it, it's a good way. So how is it a good way? There's the reason, how, or why. How would be the way, of course, and why would be the reason. So how would it be a good way? So you can give examples of how music transcends borders. You don't have really the concern for a language always. You have the sound, which speaks to the soul, right? Which bridges the gap culturally, geographically, right? We have people enjoying Indian music who have no idea about the language. We Indians, enjoy Korean music, let's say, right? And while we might not understand the words, we can just like go through their translation later while going through the lyrics, or might not even do that and still enjoy their music based on the way it's sung, right? So it really depends, right? Music, songs, whatever, right? You can enjoy without borders. It transcends borders, geographical borders, right? So culturally, is it like, something which is bridging the gap? You feel that, give examples. And if you feel that, no, it's not too effective, then you can definitely see that, no, yeah, I don't think it's a very effective way. But technically, if you think about this topic, the good way would be the way to go, because you would have the most reasons to support this rather than to oppose this. Because if you think about negative things like why music would not be a good way of bringing people of different ages and cultures together, right? You would have fewer points to discuss. So ultimately, if you look at some topics would have a bent. So there would be topics where going the pro way would be the way for you. Or there would be some topic, maybe going the con way would be the way for you. So sometimes topics have bents or bias, right? So you have to sometimes understand that by counting how many reasons you can come up with. Simply count on your fingers. I can come up with this reason, A, B, C. And okay, I have A, B, C for the pro. But I don't have even an A for the con. I'll go for the pro. It's simply a matter of decision. We don't have much time. We get to decide within the first 5 minutes. You don't go along the way simultaneously, like bridging the logical gap, because that's going to be difficult for you unless you're trained in a special way, right? So again, we're coming back to the basics, and the whole point of me showing you all these differences and these variations is simply to show you how the basics are not different. It's all a matter of simple tactics, just like simple principles. I won't even say tactics, because tactics are tools, right? We're talking about principles here. The principles remain the same. The system remains the same. Tools are different. There are always tools, there are tactics, there are strategies. We would talk about that later, but then the essentials are always the same, right? Now, look at this one. It says, some people believe, this is a discussion-oriented one. So some people believe that allowing children to make their own choices on everyday matters, such as food, clothing, and entertainment, is likely to result in a society of individuals who only think about their own wishes. Other people believe that it's important for children to make decisions about matters that affect them. So there are again two sides. One who believe that children should get to decide, and others who believe otherwise, that they should not get to decide so early on, at least. So if you are among these, that they should get to decide, you would be more pro-choice, right? If you're more pro-choice, you would be giving the reasons why. Why are you pro-choice? Why do you think children should get to decide about the basics, about their choices of food, clothing, and entertainment early on in life, and how it can maybe shape them as individuals as they grow older? And how do you think it should not be or might not be the best idea, right? So you can again come up with 2 reasons on each end and decide which one you want to go for. Which, like if you have a certain bent towards a certain point, if you feel that no, children should not be given too many choices, there's also something which has come up in recent times, right? There's the decision fatigue. Now, students sometimes ask how they could come up with the best logic. And the first thing is that, of course, you need to read stuff. You need to read your newspaper. Now, newspaper is really an old thing these days. Nobody's really bothering with newspapers anymore, but you need to be well informed, right? It's not well informed in the way that you have to know a lot. Absolutely not. Just be like basically oriented with what's going on around you. So decision fatigue is a topic which has come up in recent times. It happens with students, it happens with consumers for having too many choices. So you've gone into a marvelous shop or a mall maybe, right? And you're given these choices which are, maybe they're all good, right? They all have their pros, or like cons are very few, let's say, right? And you cannot decide in this whole like going throughout the day, first getting up, trying to get ready, out of bed, you're trying to choose your, from your closet, you're trying to choose your clothes for the day, right? You're trying to choose what to wear, and that is giving you a headache because you have so many choices. Then you go into breakfast cereal, you have 3 different cereals to choose from. Then you go for your choice of entertainment, you have so many different platforms to choose from. Now, all of these like options or choices or opportunities of choices, they give you fatigue or exhaustion, right? Now, this is a topic which is usually covered quite generally and quite widely on social media. It's been covered recently. So if you have been in touch with recent news or podcasts or maybe just like general news on social media, you would know about decision fatigue. And decision fatigue could be something that you can use in this, because this topic is about children choosing, right? So those little minds from the very first day, if they're trying to choose things, again, bombarded with so many choices, they might be exhausted with the choices or the decision. So they might suffer from decision fatigue. So you can bring in that topic, right? And that will definitely give you an edge. It's a very good logic. So again, the quality of your content would surely depend on how well informed you are. Even though it's general knowledge, you should have some general knowledge in the first place, right? You can't just like have cut and paste rote learning methods for all that, correct? So be aware of your surroundings before you actually think that, oh, I can just somehow ace it with just strategies. That's not going to work, right? Now, again, we're coming back to discuss both the views and give your own opinion. It's a discussion of the different viewpoints along with your opinion. So again, it's a matter of what you believe in, why you believe in that, what are the viewpoints. You're discussing both, because just follow the instructions. That's what it is, right? It's simple English, follow the instructions, right? There's no you should be wary of categorizations. Even though we ourselves have categorized, we've used these categorizations, I'm utterly against categorizations, because whatever type of question they give you, maybe they have one fine morning, they just decide, yeah, let us just mix things up a little, right? And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, this was not in the syllabus, right? Not gonna work for you, right? It's just simple essay. Try to stick to the basics. The basics are always the same. You sharpen your axe, you chop through that wood, and you don't have a problem with that, right? Sharpen your skills. Now, moving on, further on to another topic. As you can see, these are all Cambridge topics. You can find them in the Cambridge books. Cambridge books are always very reliable. You have other books as well. There are prestigious books. We can always give you suggestions on that. But as of now, we're using the Cambridge ones. So this one talks about in a number of countries, some people think it's necessary to spend large sums of money on constructing new railway lines, okay? New railway lines. That's your object for the first one. For very fast trains between cities. So intercities, basically, intercity. Now, others believe the money should be spent on improving existing public transport. So technically, they're saying, oh, do invest, but there are two priorities. There are differences in priorities. So differences in priorities. Now, one priority is that they should be investing in new structures or system or infrastructure, let's say. And the other one's about existing infrastructure. Okay. So, are you on the side of investing for new infrastructure? Are you on the side of investing for, let's say, maintaining the existing ones? You would have to decide based on how many points you have, relevant points, good substance, good examples that you can start with, right? Now, whatever you believe in, here in this one, there's no bias, right? Let's say you're going for the new infrastructure. So you can definitely come up with the progress viewpoint. So how you feel progress and development, let's say, should happen, right? And how you feel that the faster trains between the cities would be a boon for all those who are traveling for professional reasons, for other reasons, right? Who are commuting between cities. It'll be a blessing for them. On the other hand, if you feel that no, why invest in new structures when we can't even do the upkeep of the existing ones, giving issues, let's say, showing that, we have existing issues with the maintenance of the current tracks, the current trains. They're sometimes old ones, they're still not rolled out. The new ones are not working properly. The tracks are not maintained. There are so many reasons. There are maybe the trains are running late. Most of the time there's a need for more trains, right? So many issues that you can count. Always just count on your fingers how many points you can come up with for a certain point. At least 2 there should be. Readily just when you're conceptualizing. If you have 2 good points for some standpoint, you can go with that. But then again, it depends on your bias or your bent, right? Or what you believe in, let's say. So again, you discuss those viewpoints, the 2 sides, let's say, and you give your own opinion or you establish it. It's not just like tossing your opinion. You don't just toss it into the arena saying, oh, I believe in this. You establish it. That this is X because of Y, so and so, and thus I believe, right? Or thus we can conclude. Okay, so many ways, but opinion is something which should not just be offered, it should be established. So it's a logical order. Now, advantages, disadvantages, simply a different packaging for the same old thing, same old. It's again a matter of 2 sides, positive, negative. So we can give it any name, whatever you're doing, we can categorize it further into different subtypes, but it's going to be the same. It's some type of differentiation. Now, what differentiation are we talking about here? It says, at the present time, the population of some countries includes a relatively large number of young adults compared with the number of older people. Now, this is an issue, again, if you've been following current trends, right? If you've been on social media, if you've been following the news, you definitely would know about the issues that many countries are facing. Let's say some countries in Europe, maybe Japan you've talked about, in Asia, that you've definitely heard about, who are struggling. These people are struggling with an aging population. So what are the pros of having aging population? What are the cons of having aging population? So let's say aging population, AP, and we can make a similar list for, let's say, young population, YP. So pros and cons. Okay, so we have 2 things. Now, pros for aging population, you can find very few. Like pros for aging population could simply mean that government probably has more burden. So if you just like count on your finger, you would realize you have more cons than pro for the aging population, right? So that will be something you would naturally feel you should go against. So if you go for the young population, you can say, oh yeah, you have fresh talent. Of course, you have like, the potential to expand your economy. That's good for the domestic economy. But then again, what about the cons, right? Definitely, if you have the young population and if you're not training them properly, that's going to be bad for the economy. That's going to be bad for society in general, right? So you can again come up with the other way around, the other side of the picture. So there are always a positive side, a negative side to anything. Aging population, supporting aging population is a little difficult for most of us, and especially because we believe that fresh labor, skilled labor is always good for the economy. Whereas aging population, even though you have good experience, maybe good professionals, you would have more retirement than you would have people going into jobs, which would be bad for any industry. So overall, if you think young population would be something you would be in line with, right? That you would be supporting, while definitely be wary of the other way around, because they say, here the question is, what is the question here? They say, do the advantages of the situation outweigh the disadvantages? Now, of course, in order to answer this, you need to know what the disadvantage is or what the disadvantages are. If you don't think about the cons, you would miss out on that. So which is why whenever you're thinking about anything, always have a vague understanding, or if possible, clear understanding of what the positives and the negatives are, because based on that, you can answer these questions. So when they say, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, you have to pose it in the way that, oh yeah, these are the advantages, oh yeah, this is the disadvantage, but then again, overall, definitely the advantages are more as in outweigh, right? So that's it, right? So it's again a pro-con list of some sort. It's a simple matter of positive negatives. It's a simple matter of differences in priority. Now, when we come to the other one, look at this. It's important for people to take risks both in their professional just a moment. Both in their professional lives and their personal lives. So again, let us consider this question. It is important for people to take risks both in their professional lives and their personal lives. Do you think the advantages of taking risks outweigh the disadvantages? Again, so there would be two sides, let's say pros and cons and advantages or disadvantages. Which one you're agreeing with would depend upon how readily you can come up with the reasons. So what's the topic? Taking risks, both professional lives, in the professional life or personal life. So you can come up with instances here, right? You can think about yourself, you can think about someone else you know who has faced challenges or who have, let's say, stepped out of their comfort zone, and how taking risks benefited them or how it might not be advisable, right? So it's a cautionary tale, we can say, right? Now, if it's a cautionary tale, of course, you would be giving negatives. And if it's a tale of inspiration, you can always give the positives. Now, if you can come up with an instance of maybe an entrepreneur in the family, or maybe someone in the family who has taken risks, or maybe simply someone you've read about. It shouldn't be just someone in the family. It could simply be anyone in your vicinity. It could be anyone that you know of. It could be anyone who's like maybe an inspirational person whose life story you know of, right? So any example would work, and even general examples would work. You just have to pose if taking risks would be worth it in certain situations, and how in certain situations it might not. So you can give situational differences. So situational differences would mean that there are certain cases where taking risks might mean that you're progressing, that you're developing yourself for, let's say, stepping out of your comfort zone to learn, to grow, right? That growth idea, right? On the other hand, how taking maybe calculated risks are sometimes preferable in order for, let's say, someone to succeed in business, or maybe just a projection, financial and otherwise, right? So examples. Now, these examples have nothing to do with knowledge per se. These examples are basically your lived experiences, the experiences of your family members, of the people you love, your near and dear ones. It could be anyone, your friends maybe, right? You can always draw from the experience as a common human experience. That's what we say, right? Common human experience, and you can come up with at least 2 good points along with examples. Okay. So again, we are like, why are we necessarily giving you this idea that we're supposed to somehow go back to this demarcation of the 2 sides? Because it simplifies things. We want things to be simple for you, rather than you trying to remember loads of different stuff and you're trying to just wade through the test. When you're going through the test, you would not have the, you would probably forget a lot of things, right? So at that point of time, you really need to stick to your basics. And if your foundation is strong, if you can read the question correctly, address the question correctly, there's no way you can go wrong. Okay. Now look at this direct question example. So again, as the name suggests, you have always you can always just like name them in 1,000 different ways. They're going to be the same thing. Now it says, in some countries, more and more people are becoming interested in finding about the history of the house or building they live in. Now again, this is a general, let's say this is a phenomena which is happening. So this is a phenomena which is happening, right? And accordingly, you're talking about the reasons, and you're talking about the ways. So here we have reasons and we have ways. Again, a demarcation, right, of 2 sides. Here, rather than a pro-con, we have reasons and ways. So what reasons might there be for someone trying to find out about the history of, let's say, the apartment or the building or the house, whatever they live in? And because they've talked about the history, we have to definitely think of it in the way that it's definitely something old, right? So you can draw instances from historical places or places which have a long history, some sort of heritage associated, maybe the colonial past, or maybe something to do with a certain like a historical period. Maybe we're talking about preserving some Victorian buildings. Maybe we're talking about preserving some building from a certain age or period in a certain country. It's not country specific, right? This is not country specific. It could be of any country. It could be a general, because this is a general phenomena, right? Let's say you can talk about Italy, you can talk about UK, you can talk about India, you can talk about anything. It's just a matter of a trend for you to know what the, like, what the house really, how long it's been there, what's the history, is it associated somehow with some heritage? Now, why would people want to know that? So are there benefits? So again, the reasons can be translated to somehow benefits, because people always do what's beneficial for them. That's how we human beings are, right? So do they have any benefits in getting to know about their property, getting to know about the history of their property? Of course there is. So there's definitely the benefit, first of all, knowing about the heritage, right? Or the historical link, let's say, of a certain place, right? Which definitely has a direct link to the esteem or the pricing, right, of that very place. So of course in real estate we know how this works. So if you have a certain place and it has a history, there's definitely some potential. Maybe you're in a tourist place and you know your building or your house is associated with something phenomenal, something maybe in the past, something related to maybe the World War, maybe the colonial period, maybe there was a bomb dropped, right? God knows, it could be some piece of history which you can commercialize on. Okay, so that's one point of view. That is the financial point of view, right? The other one would be, let's say, just plain curiosity. So it could be that You just want to know about the place, you want to learn about the place so that you can have a better understanding of what's been handed down to you and how you're supposed to preserve the place, for example, and have some sort of attachment, definitely, right? So it could be curiosity, it could be the financial point, the monetary or the pecuniary concern, right? And what are the ways? So of course there are local resources. So there could be local resources of maybe like some town council, city council, maybe some organization which watches over these things, maybe the archaeological survey, maybe the local library, right? Or simply the elders in the neighborhood. So there are so many ways of learning about it. It could simply be through a simple Google research, especially if you're living in a very famous place or tourist place, right? So it could be other resources, maybe something more official resources. Okay, so different resources you can talk about, right? So here again we had a differentiation in between the reasons and the ways. Similarly, we also have questions which talk about causes and solutions. We call them cause and solution. That's also part of the direct question aspect. Direct questions can be of any sorts. Again, they usually have two-part ways. Rather than negative, positive in this manner, you have more of like causes and effects, or reasons and ways, the whats and whys and hows, right? So you would essentially be dealing with whats or whys or hows in some form or manner. That's going to be your usual concern, right? So what we have discussed throughout is that we have gone through almost like a summary of all the different types of questions. We have had a discussion on opinions. We have gone through positive and negative developments. We've gone through agree versus disagree, discussions, advantages versus disadvantages, direct question, causes or solutions. And in all of this, what is the common aspect is that it's a simple matter of getting to know your sides, let's say side A or side B, and then simply finding out what reasons, the number of reasons you have for a side. If you can come up with the reasons, if you know the examples, simply draw from your experiences, draw from your basic understanding, your basic human experience, your general knowledge, and be connected, be just aware of what's going on around, and do not wade yourself in 1,000 different strategies. That's the first thing and the last thing that should be on your mind, that you should focus on building your abilities. You should be focusing on sharpening your skills, because that is what would save the day. That is what would save your test than, like, let's say from a reattempt, right? Which is usually what happens when you wade through multiple different strategies and then simply end up losing time. That is essentially one of the main reasons why people lose time. So in our masterclass, we would be simplifying things for you. We would cut it down to the basics. We would water it down for you so that you can use it, and you can simply chop your wood without thinking twice. You can simply write your essay without going through the humdrum of so many different ways, right? You can simply do it in a simple manner, right? That's what we are trying to do here. That's how we're trying to help you, right? So we're expecting you to all turn up for our masterclass. We are doing the masterclasses every week, so let us know, just stay tuned. We would have more videos coming up. Keep watching, keep learning.